topics. So, and again, I'm not going to go into all of the hadith. Again, you can refer to the book. It's available in Arabic. There may be also Persian translations available. But suffice it to mention that there are multiple hadith from the time of the Prophet and the Imams all the way up, from the first Imam all the way down to the latter Imams that spoke about this issue of the Khums, where companions would ask on what is Khums applicable on, how is it paid. Many of these questions that we maybe come up with, many of them were answered by the Imams of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. But looking at the verse of the Quran, so there's only one reference to Khums in the Quran. That's in chapter number 8, Surah Al-Anfal, verse number 41. So as the verse says, Allah tells us in this verse, and you Muslims must all know that whatever you gain as wealth, what he calls as ghanima, a fifth of it, فَأَنَّ لِلَّهِ خُمُسَهُ. So a fifth of that is for Allah, and for the messenger, and for the near of kin, the family of the Prophet, the orphans, the needy, and the wayfarer, somebody who's traveling and is stranded on a journey, who are from the family of the Prophet, if you have true belief in Allah and in, and then the verse continues from there. So there are a few things here. I won't go into the entire commentary of the verse, but as Allah shows us, and there's a lot of obviously words that we have to understand the meaning of. I'm not going to again go into that just because that would detract us from the main theme for today. But Allah uses the word ghanimtum, that this ghanima, this wealth that you gain. So that's one of the key words to keep in mind when you want to do some more research on this topic. What is ghanima? What is this wealth Allah is talking about? I'll give you the definition that we have from the hadith shortly. But then Allah does say that within that, whatever you gain of this wealth, Allah says that 1/5 of that has to be given to certain individuals. As Allah says, Allah is one of the people who is entitled to the khums. The Prophet is one of them people. And then the family of the Prophet, what Allah calls the dhil qurba, the orphans and the poor people, and the people who are traveling and are stuck on a journey. So Allah gives us what the khums is applicable on, this ghanima as he calls it. He gives us how much is applicable, 1/5, 20%. And then Allah tells us the categories of who is entitled to receive this amount. So we'll go through this in this discussion. The first is this term, Allah says, whatever you gain, ghanimtum. So this is the key word or the key phrase that we have to keep in mind. Again, and I'm just going to gloss over this, but if you want to do further investigation, this is the key thing, is what is this term used? Because there are differences amongst the Shias and the Sunnis, especially on what is ghanimat, what is this wealth that you have gained. I'm going to take it for granted that we are basically accepting the fact that we're following what our Maraja have given us the direction and the guidance in. And so that is the key phrase, is this, whatever we gain from our wealth. We have basically, our scholars, they divide it into 7 different categories, this wealth that we gain. The first 2 are, for most of us, will be applicable. The last other 5, I've put them up there, but most likely for most of us, if not all of us, those last 5 will not be applicable. So, for example, number 3, mines and minerals. Unless we have gold mines, or we are any kind of in a business involved in mining, that we wouldn't be involved in paying khums on that. Precious stones obtained from the sea by diving, probably not. Treasures, unless you open up your backyard and you dig a hole and you find a treasure chest, obviously not. Number 6, land which a dhimmi, non-Muslim who lives under an Islamic government. If you are a Muslim and you had land back home, let's say from Iraq or Afghanistan or Pakistan, and let's say you own land and a non-Muslim buys that land from you, then khums there's a separate issue for that. Spoils of war, not applicable to us. So really it's the first 2 that are mostly applicable for our scenarios. So that we'll focus on those 2 today. Number 1 is surplus or profit from income. And we'll go into more detail about that. And any legitimate wealth that we have which is mixed with illicit or haram wealth, where you're not able to determine how much of your wealth is halal, legally earned, and how much of it is haram money. We'll go into some of those examples as well to see where those situations arise. Looking at the first one, though, the surplus or profit of income, from there, there's actually a further breakdown of what that includes. So the very first one, obviously, is usually most applicable to us, is earnings from business, if we have our own business, or wages if we work, the salary at work, or investments. And again, just keep in mind that this 1/5 khums is not, again, on your gross earnings, it's on your net savings, right? So just keep that in mind for this entire discussion. So the surplus or profit of income, it could be from your business, your job, if you have your own company. It could be if you're working for somebody, the wages that you get, or if you have investments in the bank, right? Anything excess and more than what your needs are for the year. The last four, according to Ayatollah Sistani at least, are based on al-ihtiyat al-wajib. So that's an obligatory precaution, meaning that he doesn't have a direct fatwa. So if you follow Sayyid Sistani in any of those issues, you can refer to the next knowledge al-marja who has a fatwa in these areas. So Sayyid Sistani says gifts that you get, prizes, bonuses that you receive, if you have them for more than a year and they're not used, they are liable for khums. Again, according to precaution. If a person is living off of charity, sometimes you may have people who are getting sadaqah, they're living off of that. They don't have a job. They can't find a steady source of income. If they were given too much sadaqah, for example, and they have leftover, that would also be khums liable. Somebody who lives off of zakat or khums, they're in a certain profession and they receive that money. Any excess they get after the end of the year is also khums liable. And unexpected inheritance from a distant relative or friend. So a direct relative, you don't have to pay khums on that. But let's say you have a third or fourth generation relative who you never expected to inherit from, and somehow you fall under the category of inheriting from them. Or you have a friend who passed away and they left money for you in their will. If not used within a year, that is also khums liable. So there are certain monies which, and we look at that in the next slide, there's certain monies that we get which will never have khums applicable on them. But in these categories, these would have khums if you have it for more than a year and you haven't used it up, that full amount. So there, as I said, there are some categories which are exempt forever, that you'll never pay khums. Yeah.
It says not used within a year. So any of these, if you receive a gift or something,
Yes.
if you have not used it within the year, only then you have to pay khums.
That's
If you've used it, then
correct. If you've used it, then you're okay. Yeah. So there are 4 categories at least that are khums free forever. So no matter how long you have this money, if you've never paid khums on it, there's no khums on that money, even though it's excess more than you need. One is the mahar, which the man pays to his wife when they get married. That money is never khums liable. So if the husband gives, let's say, 5,000, 10,000, however much the mahar was, it doesn't matter how long the woman has that money, she never has to pay khums on that money. Now, if she invests it, obviously she gets a return on that. There's khums on that, but on the principal amount, there's never khums on the mahar. As I said, inheritance, if you inherit from a direct family member, for example, let's say a mother passes away, a father passes away, the children inherit, that money that is inherited, it never has khums on it, on the principal amount. If they invest it, obviously that's another story, but the principal there'll never be khums on that money. Yes.
the person who had given the inheritance had not paid khums or was owing khums. Is that transferred to the inheritor?
So yeah, we will discuss that later on. Yeah. Number 3 is an insurance payout. So today you're driving to work, you have an accident, let's say. You get hurt really badly and you get an insurance payout for a personal injury. That is khums free as well. There's never khums on that money that you get from a personal injury that you claim that you get that money. And 4th is loans. So you take a loan from the bank, a mortgage, let's say, or you have student loans, or you borrow money from a friend, right? Somebody lends you $5,000, $10,000, and your khums day comes and you still have 2,000 of that left over, but you need it for other bills or whatever. That money, there's no khums on that. So for example, a lot of times students get OSAP loans. When they come to study at university, they borrow money from the OSAP, from the Ontario student, the program. They don't pay khums on that money because that's a loan you're getting from an institute. Or somebody gives you a qardul hasana, somebody in the community lends you some money, and that is in excess you have left over at the end of the year, of your khums year. Again, on that, there's also no khums on the principal amount. But let me make a note there. If you do borrow money from an individual or an institute like a bank, but you do that to purchase an RESP or you purchase an RRSP, then there is khums on that money. So if you're borrowing money to, let's say, pay your mortgage, to get a house to get a mortgage, or you borrow off your line of credit to pay bills and maybe house renovations, and let's say you borrow 10,000 and you still have some money left over, you're not going to pay khums on that. But if you're going to go to the bank and borrow, let's say 10,000 to invest in an RRSP or to put into your RESP account, as some people do to relieve their tax burden before tax season, if you're saving the money, then there is khums on that, right? So if you're just borrowing and spending it for your needs, your necessities, then that's okay, even if you have left over. But the minute you borrow money and now you're using it to invest in something, like an RESP, like an RRSP plan, then you have to pay khums on that money. And if you buy something, so let's just say you borrow money from the bank on your line of credit, and you buy some clothing, and let's say you buy some other stuff at home, and whatever you bought which is excess that you didn't use within 1 year, that also now has to be calculated or factored into your khums. We'll go into it in a bit more detail, but just as an example, let's say you bought 5 dress shirts or 5 suits, and you bought the suits with money you borrowed. So the money that you borrowed, there's not khums on that. But you bought, let's say, 5 pairs of pants or 5 suits or 5 purses for the ladies, and you find out at the end of the year you didn't use 1 or 2 of them. But because you've already bought that and you haven't used it, khums is now liable on that product that you bought. So the suit, you'd have to figure out what the worth of that suit is because it's never been worn, and pay khums on that, on the value of that suit. Right? So basically the premise is that whatever you have which is excess of what you need, that's the whole premise of khums, is to ensure that people don't just become hoarders, that we just buy, that we just save, that we just keep for ourselves. It's to allow a free flow of money in the economy. It's there to, and obviously the usages are there, but it's to keep the economy and ensure that there's no stagnation in the economic system of Islam, right? So anytime you, and also to ensure that there's no greed, right? That you're hoarding things, you're buying stuff, and then you're waiting for, let's say, the market to go up in price so you can sell it, right? So when you have those kinds of scenarios, that's where khums becomes applicable, when you're buying in excess and you're not using it within that 1 year time frame that the religion is giving us. So just as a reiteration, just as we remind ourselves that khums is applicable on our net savings after all of our justifiable expenses are covered. And it's important to keep that word in mind, justifiable, because we may have times where we're, not us, but the people out there, Muslims, who are spending money on things which are haram, right? And so people might wonder, well, if I'm buying things which are haram, I don't have to pay khums then. But we have to keep in mind, and I'll give you some examples, but it's only things which are legally permissible in Islam to spend money on. As an example, if people are buying alcohol, people are drinking, well, you can't say, well, I spent $1,000 on alcohol, so now I don't have to pay khums on that money. Mind you, if you're buying alcohol, you're probably not worried about khums too much. But if you are, you're one of those people who likes to pray and drink, and you want to do your wajibat and do your haram, you might be concerned about it. But generally speaking, khums is on justifiable expenses, right? So I'll give you some examples that we have. So food and drink, it's justifiable. We need to eat, we need to drink. So that as an expense, Islam says you can make it, no problem. Transportation, we need cars, right? Or you buy a motorbike, or you have your bus pass. All of those transportation expenses are valid in Islam. Educational expenses, marriage, you give gifts to people, donations to the center, Insurance premiums, right? We'll look at that in a bit more detail, but generally speaking, insurance premiums are a valid expense that's not counted as a savings in most examples. Mandatory deductions from work, right? Sometimes if we're working for a company, they may have, like CPP is mandatory. The government expects everybody to pay it, the employer, the employee. Some companies will have maybe a mandatory RSP plan that you have to go into it. Union dues, for example. All of these, and there are many more, I've just given a few examples here, but these are all valid, meaning that you can take these out of your gross earnings, and there's not Khums liable on any of these things, right? So you buy food, obviously you're not going to pay money Khums on that because you're going to buy it to consume. So this is a valid expense, right? But if you buy haram food, that's a different calculation then, right? Going and having fun, maybe going to a movie, let's say, no problem. But if you're enjoying haram entertainment, then obviously that's a separate category because that's not allowed in Islam. So you can't say, you know, for example, well, I'm going to expense my trip to the casino and not pay Khums because I spent money on the casino, right? It's just like people, if you have your own small business, right? If you have your own company, you'll know when you do your taxes and your business tax, right? And you have all your government deductions. You know, the government Canada says you have certain business expenses which you can deduct. So travel expenses for your business are deductible. If you buy a computer for your business, you can deduct that. But if you buy or you go on a vacation, you can't necessarily deduct a vacation trip against your business, right? So Islamically similar, right? If your expenses are legitimately allowed within Islam, you can actually claim those against Allah as a valid deduction. That's like a tax credit against you. Otherwise, if it's something haram, then you obviously have to pay Khums on that haram thing that you've purchased. I remember actually one youth one time asking me about this, that, you know, when they were young, they were buying music CDs. That's before you could stream music for free, right? But they would buy CDs, and all these records and CDs were piling up, and they spent thousands of dollars on music. And now they want to pay their Khums. It's not only that they pay on their bank account, they have to go back and, okay, I spent $2,000 on music CDs. It's as if you had $2,000 in your hand because that was haram music you bought, right? So you have to calculate that. Whatever the case may be, if you're buying haram food for a long time, you didn't care about, you know, haram and halal in terms of meat products, you have to figure out how much you would owe and pay accordingly to how much you've spent in impermissible areas. Again, so just as an example, anything spent on impermissible such as drugs, alcohol, lottery tickets, and anything which the Sharia deems as forbidden is an invalid expense. So that money would not be you couldn't deduct that from your savings. You would have to pay Khums on that money that you've spent on impermissible things. Let's come to some very practical areas of life that I'm sure all of us are engaged in. Different types of savings, right? Because as I said, Khums is 20% of our net savings at the end of the year. So it's not just I open up my pocket and look in my wallet how much money I have, or the ladies open up their purse, or you go to your bank account and you just see how much is in my savings account, right? Because we live in this society and we have so many ways of saving, we also have to realize that some of them maybe fall within that scope of having to pay Khums on them. Some might not be. They may be deferred to another day, another time. So let's go over a few of them. So one of them is an RRSP, right? And by its name, it's called a Registered Retirement Savings Plan. So you're saving for your retirement. It's a plan put in place to save for those days when you are older and you obviously cannot work at that level as you could when you're younger. So because it's a form of savings, it is Khums liable when you put that money in. So, for example, there's two scenarios here, right? There may be a time when you work for a company and the company has a forced RSP. Maybe they'll say that, you know what, from every paycheck, we're taking 3% and it goes into an RSP plan. If the company is doing a force compulsion that you have to pay into the RSP plan, then you don't pay Khums on that because you don't have access. You're not getting that money. It's coming off of your paycheck immediately. But if you're not in that and you yourself, every month you're putting in $100 or $200 or $500 a month, you have to realize, let's say at the end of the year, you've put in let's just say $6,000 or whatever your maximum contribution room is with CRA. You need to see how much you've put into the RSP plan as the initial capital. And when your Khums date comes, that money has to be, so 20% of that has to be paid as Khums. So you put aside $10,000 this year for your RSP. When your Khums date comes up, $2,000 has to be now paid towards Khums against that RSP. That's for the initial amount. Now, whatever the capital gains are, the interest, whatever dividends you're getting, obviously, because your RSP is now locked in until you're 65. And I mean, if you have to cash it out, you can. There's penalties you have to pay and all of that. But generally, people will put it in the RSP, and when they retire, they'll take that money out. So as long as you've been making sure that you've been paying Khums every year on your RSP and keeping a ledger, right? It's important to keep like an Excel sheet or some document so you know that every year how much you've put in. Let's say you put it, 2018, 10,000. Have a column, Khums paid 2,000. And keep going every year that you're putting in all these contributions. So when you do retire, you know how much you've got. So let's just say you retire at 65, you've got $500,000 saved up. You look at your returns and you see how much the gains have accumulated. You know that whatever I put in initially was Khums free because I paid Khums on it. Now it's only the capital gains or the interest which are Khums liable. And so here, as scholars say, that if you would like to, I don't want to call it circumvent the system or have a legal loophole, but they're there, so we can make the use of them, right? Is when you draw that money from your RSP plan, right? Let's say you retired, you start cashing in, or you get the bank puts something into your account every month. Make the niyat, make the intention that the money is coming from the interest rather than the capital, rather than the initial principal rather that you put in. So that way you're using the interest first, which hasn't had Khums paid on it, right? And then when that runs out, then you start dipping into the actual capital that you put in. So that just calls for your niyyah, your intention, when you draw that money out. And really that comes for almost all of our savings, right? It depends on your intention of what money you're going to be using. Although it's all in the same physical account, it's all, it's just a number on a screen today. But just make your intention, your niyyah, that I'm drawing from this account, not from the principal, which is Khums free, but with the interest, the returns, which have not yet been paid Khums on. And if you have any excess from that at the end of your year, then obviously you would be paying Khums on that particular portion of your money. The second savings option we have in Canada is the TFSA, the tax-free savings account. And as you know, it can be a savings account. You can go into mutual funds, you can go into stocks, you can invest that money in a lot of different areas. Again, this is a savings account by its nature, by its name. It's a way that the Canadian government put in place that Canadians could save money and have it grow within an account with tax-free, no tax implications. Because it is a savings plan, again, it's Khums liable. So if you put in, I think the maximum is $5,750 this year. If you max out on that contribution, $5,750, you have to pay that 20%. So it's about $1,500 or so. That has to go to Khums as well, just like the RRSP, right? Any increment, though, any of the interest, the capital gains, you invest in the stock market, you do in mutual funds, on the day of your Khums, again, you'd have to look at that account and see how much you put in initially as your initial capital, how much hopefully the gain is, and pay on that difference, right? That's if you have that cash, if it's accessible, right? And I think for most of the tax-free accounts, they're accessible they're pretty accessible. They're not locked in, right? Unless you have some kind of a locked-in plan. But if you have a savings account, if you have a mutual funds, that money is available for you to get access to. But usually the rule is with Khums that if the money is locked in and you can't access it, then you don't pay on it, right? Until you actually have access to those funds. Third is what we're also unique to Canada, which is the RESP, which is the Registered Education Savings Plan, in which parents or grandparents or even other individuals can save money for an individual for their post-secondary education. Again, by its nature, it's called a savings plan. You're saving for your children's, let's say, university or post-secondary. Because it's a savings plan, it is Khums liable on the person putting that money in. And so again, the government has a limit of $55,000 per child you can put in over the course of their, up to age 18, I believe it is. 55,000 is the maximum. So every year, that you put that money in, you have to pay khums on that. Now, the government does match that contribution to a certain amount, and if you invested in a mutual fund or whatever, there's obviously returns. You wouldn't worry about those returns and the government contribution until the child is actually ready for post-secondary. One of the questions that came up, and there was a confusion in it, I would say, amongst our community and the scholars, was what happens once your child becomes 18, let's say, or they start, or whatever age, because you can use it up to the age of 30 before it flips over to into an RRSP plan. What happens when when the child goes to university? Let's say you put the 55,000 maximum contribution in, the government comes up, and I think it's 7,000 or 8,000 the government added to it, and then it grew because of the market. Child becomes 18, now what happens? The ruling basically is that what they call the subscriber, which is the person who initiated the RESP plan on behalf of that child, they retain the ownership of that money. So person A puts in, let's say, the maximum contribution. Their daughter begins university. The subscriber, the parent who put that money in, they still are the owners of that account. It doesn't get transferred over to the child, right? The ownership doesn't change hands in terms of the Canadian government's rules and regulations. So what happens is that because the parents had initially put that money in, the parents presumably paid khums on it when they were putting it in. So that entire amount of the initial capital was khums free. So what should happen here ideally is the parent would tell the child, okay, you're going to university. When they get all the paperwork done, they would bring that paperwork back to the family. They would take that to the bank. The bank would be able to release the funds to that student. And there's a formula that the government has of how much they can take out of it. The initial amount is you can take out all of it within a certain time frame. But basically the gist of it being here is that as long as the parents or whoever put the initial amount in, as long as they retain control of that account, they don't sign it over to the child and say, here, 60,000, 100,000, have fun. As long as they don't do that, there is no extra khums on the child. But if the father or mother were to say, we saved 100,000 for your education through the RESP plan, we paid our khums on it, here you go, here's your money, you can keep it. Now that money changed ownership to the child. If that child, the son or daughter, didn't use that money within a year, they're liable for the khums. So you give them 100,000 that you paid khums on. You paid your khums, it's free. You give it to your child. Now they have $100,000 in hand. Let's say they spent 20,000 on their first year of university, tuition, accommodation, 80,000 left over. Because it's now their money, their property, they now are obliged to pay the khums. So on 80,000, they're paying 16,000 khums. So not the trick, but the goal should be that the subscriber, the parent, if they paid the khums, it should stay in their name, and as the child needs it, they can give it, the parents can give it to the child, as they require the funds. Or maybe, 5,000, 10,000 at a time, whatever. But the minute you sign over the ownership and you give that money to somebody else, you've paid your khums, you're done, but now the money has changed hands. So now they are liable for the khums. If there's questions, we'll take them at the end of the session, but we just try to go through at least the main gist of the discussion tonight. Another thing unique to Canada is a child allowance, that parents will get an amount of money based on their own personal income, how many children they have, marital status, so on and so forth. It's obviously given to the parents because of the fact they have children, right? And so the government is presuming or giving it to you with the thought that you're going to spend that on your child for their food, for their clothing, for school supplies, whatever the case may be. If the parents get that money and they have nothing left over at the end of their khums year, then obviously there's no khums to pay. Sometimes parents will say, well, we have excess, we'll put it into a separate account for our kids. And when our children become 16 or 18, they'll have an amount of money for, vacation, or if they want to go for ziyarat, or for whatever they need that money for. If the parents save it for the children's future, there is a difference of opinion here. Sayyid Sistani says that even a non-baligh child, they are still obliged to pay khums. So their guardian, their wali, would have to take it out for them. So if you have, let's say, a 2-year-old baby at home right now and you're saving for your child, for your daughter, even though it's in her own personal, let's say you create an account at a bank for your daughter or your son, even though it's in that child's name and they're not baligh, but you're still, if you follow Sayyid Sistani, he says that the parents still have to pay khums, even for a non-baligh child. Other maraja differ, so if you have another scholar that you follow, check the rulings, because some scholars say that there is no khums for a non-baligh child, and even the parents or guardians don't have to pay their khums. But Sayyid Sistani is clear, he says no, even non-baligh children are obligated to pay khums, and their guardian would have to take care of that on their behalf. Saving for a home, right? We obviously live in an era, especially nowadays in Ontario, where you literally can't buy a house with cash unless you're very well-to-do. And so many people have to save for a down payment for a home. Sayyid Sistani and a few other Maraja have a very unique ruling, and I think Sayyid Sistani, this ruling of his only came about maybe like 5 years ago. The late Ayatollah Fadil Lankarani passed away in Khums. He actually had this ruling going back about 12 years ago, that if you are a first-time home buyer, you've never owned a home in your life, you want to buy a house, and it's within your status, so you're not buying something overly expensive that you know you can't afford. And he makes a condition that not buying a house would be looked upon by the people in your community as that you're not paying, you're not fulfilling your rights as a husband, as the man of the house, by providing for your family, by making them live in a small apartment or whatever. And people might look bad at you because you're not providing this need, this requirement, really. He says then for that time period of savings, there's no khums on that money. So if you're saving for 5-10 years for a down payment, the house is not overly, not more than what you should be spending. We live in a society where people might say, well, you don't live in a home. Why aren't you providing for your family? You have 4 kids, you're in a 1-bedroom apartment. What are you doing? Right? Then he says you don't have to pay khums on that savings, but only for that time that you're saving for the house. Once you buy the house, you put your down payment on. Now all your future savings for the home are khums liable, right? But the home itself, the first-time home buyer, they have that luxury. If they need to save up for the down payment, then that money is khums exempt as a part of their savings. Again, I've only seen it from Ayatollah Fadil Lankarani, the late, and Sayyid Sistani. Other Maraja may have it. I haven't seen it from other scholars, though, to date. Another issue is saving for a child's wedding. Obviously, we live in a time when it is very expensive to get married for most people. And sometimes for some parents, depending on the culture that we come from, some cultures expect the bride or the groom's family to provide a lot of things, maybe a furnished home, maybe a car, a lot of different things that different cultures are expected to give at the marriage time. And many of those, obviously, parents can't save it up, in a year or two. Maybe parents will say, okay, my child is 13 or 14. I expect them to get married, let's say, in 6, 8, 10 years. If I start saving today 2,000 or 3,000 a year, then I'll have enough with inflation and the cost of living increase. So, according to Ayatollah Sistani and many other Maraja, actually, although he has it also for the son, he says if you're saving for your daughter or your son's marriage, and you can't normally meet those expenses based on your income, so you're making, let's say, 40,000 a year right now, and you know that your daughter or son will be married in a few years and you can't afford the wedding, he says, and again, whether it's a son's wedding or a daughter's, that you can save that money, and that money is completely khums free. There's no khums to pay on that. But you need to obviously make sure the niyyah, the intention is there, that this is for that wedding. Or you're buying gifts. You're buying, let's say, people in some cultures will buy gold, will buy maybe wedding outfits. Maybe you're buying dishes, you're buying things, sofa or furnishing, something for the house. If it's cash or gifts, no matter how far in the future, they can be kept aside and there's no khums would be paid on those, right? So Again, a very unique ruling for Sayyid Sistan that he also extends it to the son's marriage, not only the daughter. Because all the marajat say for your daughter, that's not a problem. The parents can save and there's no khums on it. But Sayyid adds the exception for the son as well. Again, it's something unique and something that many people, may have to do when their children are getting ready for that age. Coming to one of the topics I mentioned previously, new unused items. Sometimes we'll go, and I'm sure many of us shop at Costco, so we'll buy 20 tubes of toothpaste at one time and 50 toothbrushes because they're on sale. And they sit in a closet, right? Because you can't use 20 tubes of toothpaste in a year probably, unless you're very hygienic and you brush like 5 times a day. But anything we buy which is brand new and unused, which has a retail value, right? You go and shirts are on sale, right? You buy 3 dress shirts. Maybe the ladies buy a couple outfits. You buy a watch, a ring, a purse, whatever it is, and it's brand new in the package. You put it in your closet. You say, I'm going to use that next month. And you keep forgetting. A year comes and it's still, you open up your closet. You see, I bought all this stuff. I haven't even used it yet. Whatever is brand new in a package which has a value, like you could go to the store and they would have that exact item, or you could go on Craigslist or Kijiji and sell it. You have to pay khums on that at the retail value of today. So you bought a shirt, it was on sale, $25 for a dress shirt. You forgot about it, you open it, you find it in your closet, now it sells for $50. Guess what? You have to pay khums on the $50 price, not on what you paid for it. So be careful when we buy, right? And that's the dilemma, is that many times we buy too much, right? If you watch that TV show, The Hoarders, you see people, how much they buy, right? You go into their home and there's 100 tubes of toothpaste and 40 bottles of ketchup. And you wonder, why do you need so much, right? And Islam, again, is not against us buying and enjoying. Islam is concerned about consumption, about becoming consumers, about wastage, asraf, right? Which is a sin. And so anything which is new and unused, which has a value, you have to pay khums on that if you haven't used it within a year. So, for example, sometimes the sisters will ask, well, they had a birthday or their marriage happened. They got a lot of jewelry, a lot of wedding, outfits, shoes. Even if you wear it once, you just wear the earrings around the house once. You wear the necklace, the watch, whatever. Just wear it once to say that I've worn it. It's now used, and you're okay. But you don't have to wear it out and walk around town and this and that. As long as you've used it, you've taken the shirt out of the package, you've worn the shirt, you've washed it, then you hang it up for another 10 years, it doesn't matter. But the point is that, first of all, we should be only buying what we need. We shouldn't be excessive. And if we are excessive, or if we found we've bought stuff that we haven't used, then we have to be sure that we pay the khums on that. Sometimes at home, though, we might open up our closet, right, and we'll find that we have rice. We bought a 50-pound bag of rice because it's obviously cheaper. And we eat, let's say, flour, rice, we use as staple foods in our home. Scholars say if that thing has a value, then you pay khums on it. But most times, if you have a 25-kilo bag of flour and you have 4 kilos left, it's not worth anything. You can't take it to the store and sell it back to them, right? Or you buy a bottle of perfume or cologne or aftershave. It might be a $100 bottle of cologne with a little bit left, but that half bottle isn't worth $50. Right? There's no value to that product anymore. Like this bottle of water, if it's $1, half a bottle is not going to be worth 50 cents. It's garbage. So you have to judge accordingly at home, right? If you have a brand new bottle of ketchup, never opened, it has a value. But if you have a half a bottle of ketchup, you're not going to say, well, half a bottle is worth 50 cents, right? So only things that are open and are used, there is no khums on that. If it's brand new in a package, resellable, then there would be khums on that particular product. Burial items, right? Many of us, when we go for ziyarah, we'll buy a kafan. We'll buy all of the things that we need for burial. Sometimes we might even buy the qabr, the plot of land. Maybe many people I've talked to back in their home country, they may have a family graveyard, or they might buy a piece of land for their own burial. Or even here in Canada, right? We have communities where you might be able to buy your own burial plot. Obviously, if you buy a kafan and you don't die in a year, you haven't used your kafan. You can't just wear it like a shirt and walk around your house with your kafan on. It doesn't count, right? So you buy a kafan, you have to pay khums on it if you don't die within the year. But let me tell you a good secret though. If you want to live long, buy a kafan. There's actually hadith, if you want to have a longer life, hadith says buy the kafan and keep it with you. So sometimes people think, that's weird. Why should I buy a kafan? I'm like 20 years old. I'm young. I'm not going to die till I'm 100, right? We don't know when we're going to die or where. But we have hadith, when you buy a kafan and you prepare all of those steps for death, Allah will actually give you barakat in your life and allow you to live longer than you would have if you don't buy the kafan. And number two, and I've seen this happen, is that when we go for ziyarah, right, and you go to the kafan stores, they'll have different kinds of quality, right? This is for $20, this is $30, this is $50, this is $100. And we like to bargain, right? We go to Iraq, we go to Iran for ziyarah, we try to bargain with the guy. Give me a takhfif, give me a discount on this kafan, right? It's actually mustahab to spend as much as you can on a kafan, right? And you think about it, when in this world, we and you'll go and buy the best dress shirts, right? When we have a job interview, the best suit we'll want to wear, right? We'll want to wear the best shoes, we'll polish our shoes, nice socks. I remember going to the Bay and looking at the dress socks, and we look at people buying like socks for $15, $20 for one pair of socks. But yet we go and buy our kafan and we want to bargain with the guy in Najaf or Karbala, right? So it's mustahab to spend, don't be excessive, but don't be cheap, right? Buy a kafan, which is a good quality cloth. Because keep in mind, on the Day of Judgment, when we're raised from our graves in that kafan, there's hadith that says that people who have good kafans, they'll be proud. Like, yeah, look at my kafan. I got the nice one when I was alive. You got a cheap Korean, Japanese, Chinese knockoff. I got the real deal, right? So spend good money on a kafan. You know, it's a once in a lifetime purchase, right? You're not going to buy a second kafan. So buy a good one. It'll allow you to live longer. On the Day of Judgment, you'll be raised up with that kafan. You'll look nice on the Day of Judgment. So if you don't use it though, you have to pay khums on that. The burial plot, for example, in some of our communities, like in Toronto, our community there, they have, you have a burial scheme where you pay into an insurance policy. And so when you die, most of your expenses are covered. In that example, you're not actually buying a physical plot, right? You're buying the right to be buried in the Shia graveyard, but you're not buying a physical, they're not putting a name on a plot. So this is your reserved spot. So as long as the spot is not reserved for you, there's no khums on that. So you pay for a plot. Even here in Kitchener, we had bought 120 plots many years ago. There's no khums on that. If you paid into that, it's not like, okay, I didn't die this year, I didn't use it, so now I have to pay. Because that's a communal graveyard, and whoever passes away, whatever spot is remaining, they'll just bury you in that. Gifts by people who don't pay khums. So you as a believer, you're paying your own khums, but you get a gift from somebody, a family member, a friend gives you a gift. And you know for a fact that they don't pay khums, right? You know for 100% certainty. Not that you think or you doubt or they might or might not. You know for sure 100% that that family member, that friend, they don't pay khums at all. The ruling is that you are not obliged to pay khums, right? That's between them and Allah. You don't have to deal with that. If they bought something and they gave it to you as a gift, they didn't pay khums on that thing, that's up to them to be accountable for. Once you get that gift, it's yours. As long as you've used it within the year, there's nothing on you. But don't pry into their life and ask, oh, did you pay khums? Do you pay? Who do you pay to? Don't ask those questions, right? We don't want to become like spies and make life difficult, right? You get a gift, accept it. Don't ask them the questions. Take it and use it, and that's their accountability with Allah on the Day of Judgment. They will have to account for if they didn't pay khums on it. Coming to some other types of savings and I guess expenses we have in life. One is permanent life insurance, right? Because we have different kinds of life insurance. We have term insurance, where let's say people will buy a life insurance policy for a certain time, right? Rather than when you get a mortgage, for example, rather than going to the bank and taking out mortgage insurance, right? Experts will say, well, you know what? Take out a term life insurance policy, 10, 15, 20, 25 years, that God forbid the person paying the mortgage passes away. At least that would cover the mortgage. But permanent life insurance are premiums which are paid. They also call it whole life insurance. And we actually say that on those there are Khums liable because it's more of a savings account. It's not an insurance policy where after 10 years it expires and all that money is gone, right? Permanent life insurance or whole life insurance, you can't call it a legitimate deductible expense, which is Khums exempt, because it's actually a form of savings that usually the person will get when their policy matures, or if they die before that, their heirs will inherit that money. And so because of that, permanent life insurance is, according to Sayyid Sistani, and probably many other Maraja, is something which Khums is liable upon. But if you have term life insurance, that is Khums exempt. We have other types of insurance that we have to have, right? In Canada, car insurance is a must. You have to have it. House insurance, you have to have insurance on your home. Medical, if you're, for example, if you're paying into a medical plan, Blue Cross or another company that's offering, medical benefits or dental benefits, all of these kinds of insurance plans are expenses which are legitimate in Islam. And so you don't have to calculate that. That's an expense, just like buying food, just like gas in the tank. There's no khums on that. And again, I make the example also of some other jamaats that have burial schemes, right? Some communities will say every year you pay $200 into a burial scheme, and they'll prorate it depending on your age and different circumstances. But then when you pass away or a family member dies, the burial expenses are now limited. They're obviously drastically reduced according to how much you paid. That's also a valid expense, and there's no khums on that money that you pay into that burial scheme as well. CPP and other mandatory pensions that we have, at least this one in Canada, because it is mandatory, the employee has to pay their share. The employer also pays their portion for themselves, their employees. We don't pay khums on that, right? And because that's a government requirement. Obviously, when you retire and you begin to draw and collect that CPP, the government pays you back that pension and whatever formula that they use. At that point, you would now calculate that as a part of your income. And if you had any excess savings, you'd pay khums on it. If there was no excess savings, obviously, then you are free of that. Again, here, because of the fact that it's a requirement to pay by the government, we don't pay khums on it. But when we get it back at the end, it's like new money coming to us. So then if there's savings left over, then again, there is khums on that. Give you a couple of practical examples, two of them at least. When people spend too much, right? People who spend too much with the niyat, with the intention to not pay khums. So an example, this individual has a net income of $80,000. Based on their lifestyle, they should be spending 50. So let's say mortgage, car payments, food, vacation, all of the permissible expenses, they should be spending 50,000 based on who they are. But because they're greedy, because they want to try and circumvent the system and not pay khums, they think, hey, if I spend 20,000 on, the big screen TV and this and that and this and that, I can pay less khums. So rather than spending 50, they spend 70,000. So 20,000 in excess, right? In that case, they have to pay actually khums on their savings, which should have been 30,000, not on $10,000 savings. So, and this is all personal, right? No Maulana, no Sheikh can tell you this, right? You have to look at yourself and say, did I really try and cheat Allah out of this money, right? People have come to me, can I, for example, my khums date is July the 10th, my wife's is July 15th. Can I give my wife a loan of $10,000 and then the day after my khums, she can pay that money back to me? Well, you can do it. Of course, you can do whatever you want, right? But you're cheating Allah. Right? Allah knows that what you're doing, right? So, I mean, you could do it if you want to, but think about it, right? What are you doing? You're depriving an orphan of maybe food. You're depriving needy people in our society. You're depriving our community of having a better community center, of books being published, of Islamic work getting done. You're not hurting anybody except the community on a whole, right? So yeah, you can go and do that. You can trade money between you and your wife, give her a loan on Monday, She can pay you back on Wednesday before her, her khums or whatever, just so that way you get your money back, and then you don't have to pay khums for another year on it. But we have to really be honest with ourselves and say, well, what am I really doing, right? And in this example too, if you think, well, I have 50,000 I should be spending, that extra 20 I'm going to spend it and buy, be a bit extravagant, you're just cheating yourself. Allah knows. And obviously on the day of judgment, we'll be brought to task because of our intention, our niyyah, right? So if we're going to cheat Allah, then obviously we are going to be accountable to Allah. Obviously, if you spend too less, it's not too bad. Again, net income 80,000 in this example. They should be spending 50, but they get a bit cheap. They turn the heater down in the winter, tell the kids to wear 2 sweaters at night, keep 2 blankets on, as people sometimes do. Becomes a bit cheap, frugal, saves an extra 10,000. They obviously have to still, do and pay the homes on how much on the 40,000 basically, right? Because their intention again, right? So Islam is not saying be excessive in spending or be marzuli. Just lead your life how you need to lead the life, and just pay your bills, right? Pay the bills to Allah at the end of the day. Women who earn, obviously it's wajib for women also to pay their own khums on their income. A woman doesn't do taqleed to her husband unless her husband's a marja, then and she trusts him, then she can follow him. But most of us probably are not maraja here, so our wives are probably not doing taqleed to us. They're hopefully following another scholar. And if a woman is working, she has to pay her own khums if she has any savings, just like a man would, just like a child would have to pay their own khums, right? Obviously, we know that a woman doesn't have to provide for the family and all that. If she does, it's because she wants to help strengthen the family and pay off the bills and pay off the mortgage quicker. That's great as a family to work together. But a woman should pay her own khums. She doesn't have to follow the marja her husband follows. She can follow her own and obviously deal with her own khums at her own level. Obviously, her expenses can be taken out of that as well, although the husband has to provide, the necessities of life for her. But whatever else she buys out of her own money is a valid expense as long as she hasn't gone to extravagance or haram. One of the rules about inheritance that I think was asked, so I obviously want to talk about that, is what if a person dies before their khums date? So a person you have, and let's say their khums date is July the 15th. July the 1st, they pass away. So obviously they haven't paid their khums yet. The inheritors are there. They want their money. Everybody wants their money. Really, what has to be followed is that the executor, and we talked about it in our will seminar last year, but the executor would first of all have to deduct all of the expenditures of that person. So all that person who passed away, all of their bills would have to be paid. Credit card, whatever other bills are remaining. And then from whatever savings are left over after bills, khums has to be taken out and given to the marja of who that person was doing taqleed of. And then the inheritance will be given to the people, the children, the spouse, parents, if they're alive and they inherit. They will then get their inheritance after everything else has been paid. So it's important, again, and I can't overemphasize this, that we always have to keep a really clean record, online Excel spreadsheet, documentation at home in some kind of a book that tells our family who we do taqleed to, when we last paid khums, on what accounts we paid khums on, right? We have, many of us have multiple bank accounts. Maybe we have PayPal, maybe we have Bitcoin, although it's haram, so don't do Bitcoin right now until the fatwas are clear. But we have a lot of money laying around, digital currencies online in our banks, under our mattresses at home, in our closets, right? We have to make sure that we keep a track of how much we have where and how much is being paid khums. God forbid we were to die right now going home and our family now has to pay our khums. Are they going to be able to find where all of our money is? How much did we already pay khums? What is remaining? Who do we do taqleed to? Right? All of those things should be written somewhere, kept in our will, right? Ideally within our will probably, so people know what they have to do, because just because we're dead, it doesn't mean that we're not accountable to Allah. Right? Allah will say, well, you were alive. You had an opportunity to write a will. You had an opportunity to write down your khums information. And now that you've died, Allah will say, well, you had left family behind. You should have told them what to do. Right? As long as you have done what we've done, our due diligence, then we won't be accountable. But if we didn't do what we had to do, right, then we'll be accountable with Allah. Just like with CRA, right? When you die, you still have to file your taxes. Your family will file your taxes for you. And if you owe CRA, they'll want their money. They're not going to say, oh, poor guy, he's dead. Let's forgive his tax. No, you'll pay the tax, right? And you'll pay more. You pay all the other taxes you have to pay. So Allah is merciful. He's not like CRA. Thank God for that. But Allah says, you know what? I have rules and you have to follow Allah's rules as well. So again, it's something to really think about. When to pay, and we'll finish in a few minutes, and we'll probably have to continue after the salat, just the end of the slides. But when to pay the khums. So khums becomes obligatory at the beginning of your new financial year on profit or surplus of your past year's income. Just like with Canada with taxes, right? This year, 2018, we filled our taxes for 2017, right? On an income that we made last year. Similar with khums, it's on your previous year. And previous year can be calculated either through the calendar, January to December, or you can use the Islamic calendar. You can say 1st of Ramadan will be my khums date, or July the 5th could be my khums date. It doesn't make a difference. Or you could use the Iranian solar calendar, for example, 1st of Khordad, for example, or whatever. If you use the common era calendar, January to December, you actually get a 10-day benefit every year. So you have 10 extra days to spend money. So and every 3 years, you get an extra month of spending. So if you want to use that, then you're a bit better off in terms of spending your money. But you can use either calendar, Islamic calendar or the common era calendar. Either one we're okay, or as long as it's a valid calendar. Not that your year has 800 days in it. No, you can't make up your own calendar and I'm going to use the Mayan, Egyptian, or the Mexican calendar of whatever, right? You have to use a calendar that's commonly known in the world. So let's go to some of the practical things. So how much is khums? As you said, it's 20%. So the 80% is, obviously this big pie is our earnings in the whole year. The 80% are our expenses, legitimate expenses we had. And the only little part that Allah says He wants us to pay is 20%. 50 of that belongs to the Imam of our time, and 50 belongs to the Sadat. And we'll explain that differentiation and where it comes from as well. So the very, very simple calculation of khums is you take all of your cash, liquid savings, value of unused items, anything else which khums is payable upon. You multiply that figure by 20%, and there's your khums. It's pretty simple, right? But the reason why we've been talking about it for an hour is our lives are so complex, right? We have RRSPs and tax-frees, and we have all of these different savings plans. So now we have to figure out what is khums free, what is khums liable. But ultimately, we just take all the money or value, things we have a value at the end of the day. 20% is the total. So you have 50,000 in all of that complete pot. Multiply by 20%, your khums would be $10,000. Yes. Sure. Yeah, we'll stop right now. With one question, and we'll stop.
So, Assalamu alaikum. So, the one thing that I get confused on, so the 20% which goes on savings, is that savings in the past 1 year only or cumulative over all the years? Once you've paid khums on something and you have not used it again for another year, is there again khums liable on it?
No. Good question, right? So yeah, once you paid khums on something, it's khums free forever. So today you had $10,000 or $50,000 in your bank account. You paid 20% khums, so you paid $10,000. So now you have 40,000 left. That money is khums free forever. As long as you own that money, it's yours. You'll never pay khums on it again. If it transfers to your child or to your spouse or to another family member, that's a different issue. But as long as you have that money, there'll never be khums on it. We will stop here. We'll pause for prayers. And then we only have about maybe 10 minutes or 15 minutes left of the PowerPoint. We'll go through that, just the difference in how the money is divided up and it's utilized. And then we'll have time for Q&A after that. And also there will be refreshments served after that. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. جزاك الله أحسنتم.
Essentially, every Muslim has to be a financial manager for himself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unfortunately, we don't learn these things at all.
No, no. And when you start looking into it and see how it affects so many other things in your life and your death, it's like, yeah, I mean,
Scary.
yeah, these kinds of things. I mean, really, these things should be taught in the level, like, you know, we teach like Urudin and Usuludin. Like we probably teach, oh, Khums, yeah, pay your Khums, right? But we don't teach kids how to become accountants. And in this world, you have to be an accountant, like, you know, just for your basic day-to-day needs.
Just knowing this makes your life simpler.
Yeah, it does. So we're actually, I'm working on a book with a friend in Toronto on Khums, with all of these issues, RRSPs and RESPs, and explaining all these different terminologies and how they work. He's not a financial planner or advisor, but he's very well versed in these things. So working with him, and I've already put together that skeleton is about 200 pages. But looking at all the contemporary issues as well about some of these.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, sorry.
With this
sorry.
difference.
Yeah, no, you're right, you're right. You're right.
Already worrying about all the stuff that we have.
Jazakallah. Yes, you're right. Jamal. Ya sahib al-Jamal.
We'll have a connection over there, yeah, for the ladies. There's
Yes.
room.
Yes.
Perfect.
Why do you,
Where? Size?
bro, if I've become marja, the first thing I
Increase
plan
the size?
is the size.
The earth. This is good size. This or
Yeah,
this?
yeah.
This
feel like
is, yeah.
Someone to run away from the sujood.
They're making compact. Garters smaller.
Look, oh no, this is
No,
just,
this is just a bit smaller.
yeah.
Should be around 3 minutes, right? For Salata?
Yeah, yeah, 3 4 minutes, yeah.
Whenever.
There's actually a hadith that I had talked about one time. It's from the Prophet where he basically he curses he curses those parents who he says that he basically curses those parents for a certain reason, and the companions ask, why are you cursing these parents? And he says that they didn't teach their children the workings of the world, the dunya. They taught them everything else they needed to know, but they didn't teach them how to navigate the world, the dunya. Right?
Like our education system.
Like learning about accounting, right? Like businesses, right? How to do all this kind of stuff. Like we teach them how to pray, how to fast. Okay, that's all good. We need to know that, but we don't teach them how to lead a likely system in the secular world, right? And I mean, you leave it at the schools, and the schools don't teach kids this kind of stuff, right?
Design graduates.
Yeah.
Teach people.
Yeah.
People like that.
I mean, we don't teach kids the importance about saving money, about banking, about, this kind of thing. I mean, it's all about spending, and, wasting money and that, right? The schools don't teach about financial planning, I don't think. Don't teach us, they teach us about yeah, we don't, right? And we don't teach the things in the mosque, right? We don't have programs, or we don't have seminars on time management, on business, administration, on accounting principles, and sort of basic, taking care of your own, personal life. kids in school, we don't teach it in the madrasa, we don't teach it in the center, so it's like, if the parents don't teach it, if the parents don't know it, right, the parents can't know everything, and the kids are left to Google it. You know?
Yeah.
So it's, yeah. I mean, even me growing up in America, we didn't learn any of this stuff, you know, like how to use a spreadsheet, no idea. Until I started working on BlackBerry, you have to use like Excel for data, you know, number crunching and things. And obviously, you know, the mosque can't teach everything, but I think when you have a community, if you have a community, if you have a real community in that real sense of that word, then you'll be able to offer these kinds of things, right? It's not just about how to make wudu and all that. Like you have people who are experts in everything, community members who are, you know, different professions who come in and say, I'm going to teach a whole module on how to make a PowerPoint, let's say, right? Or how to use Excel, how to use Microsoft Word, how to do graphic design, how to do video editing, right? How to do all of these things, right? People who, if you're interested, you go and sign up and you do it, or how to learn, you know, SAP, or how to learn project management skills, so, right? Yeah. And most of them, we just have a mosque where people come and pray and they laugh and cry and that's it, and eat. But we don't have like, we don't teach life skills that.
Should be time, right? 6 per time.
34.
What, people or?
Yeah, they feel the second.
I think so. Let me see time. I mean, if you offer them, I think. This is 8:38, but my app might be wrong. April 27. 8:35. Couple minutes, yeah.
Mine also says 38, 39.
Yeah.
The app. So
Yeah, mine says 8:38, so we can wait a couple minutes.
I think I remember one thing. This one says like 2 or 3 minutes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So let's wait then. It's better to pray later. Than
Yeah, is that booklet even right? I don't know how old is that booklet.
Yeah, it's been a while. I mean, we put
Shouldn't
this
change.
The one last year, I think. Last year or the year.
2015, but it's based on about
Yeah.
10-year-old data, 10 or 15-year-old data. So it's, I mean, it's always good to revisit it. I know
how accurate that is.
I know in Edmonton we actually had a couple brothers who for like the whole year they basically went out every day and observed the sky to make sure that you're close enough to the timings. So
Use it only in Ramadan.
Ramadan, that's a crucial point. Ramadan praying. As long as that's fine. Maghrib time. Suhoor can be, Fajr can be a bit off, but
Mother cannot be.
Or we can go for iftar and earth sleep, you know,
oh, really?
and come for breakfast.
you know, Sayyid Sistani, I mean, Sayyid Sistani, his fatwa was ihtiyat to break at Maghrib. So if you follow, you can do ruju to say Sheikh Nasir Makarim Shirazi, who says you can break at sunset time.
10 minutes before.
Half an hour, 20 minutes actually, 20 minutes, depending where you are. So in Vancouver, the Shia community. Yeah. So for example, the Shia community in Vancouver, Azahra Center, right on their prayer timetable, they have it. They said that according to Sayyid Sistani, you have to break at Maghrib. But he said it's ihtiyat, so you can follow the next knowledgeable. If you take Sheikh Nasir Makarim, he said you can break right at sunset time for Sunnis. So you're like 20 to 25 minutes earlier.
That's awkward if you go to Sunni masjid then.
Yeah, yeah.
Depends. As we said, I remember I spoke with the geographers, people specialize in geography.
Okay.
He said he was Sunni. He was Sunni. He said he asked me why you do this, and I explained to him. He said, "Oh, why?" I thought we fixed for 15 minutes. That's the best between us. He said, "Oh, it's not 15 minutes." He said, "In geography, we study that the time between the sun set and the Maghrib."
Okay.
He said it depends on the time. In winter and summer, it varies between I think 10 or 12 to 15. But I think this is precaution for us. It's 15.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not 15. Malak will not run away from us. By the way, who is Dr. Zaid Salami?
He's a friend of mine actually originally from Iraq, born in Baghdad, but his family's been in Australia for like 30, 40 years now. So he's one of the sheikhs in Australia in Sydney. And right now I think he's back in Khums continuing studies though. His father actually has a Husseiniya in his house. His father's quite
Time.
Yeah, so actually I visited their
37, right?
house there.
saw it today that's on your Facebook.
Yes, I posted it.
This salami is, I don't know this, I have to ask. I'm not very kind of familiar with the tribes in my country. But we have one main tribe, like my mother, Kanana. This is very famous tribe. Kanana is even in Hijaz, like the Jews, the Prophet, they know like this.
But yes.
A branch of this, we have Quran.
سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر
الله أكبر الله أكبر.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله.
أشهد أن محمد رسول الله
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أشهد أن محمد رسول الله
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أشهد أن عليا ولي الله
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أشهد أن عليا حجة الله
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
حي على الصلاة
حي على الصلاة.
حي على الصلاة
حي على الصلاة.
حي على الفلاح
حي على الفلاح.
حي على الفلاح
حي على الفلاح.
حي على خير العمل
حي على خير الأمل.
حي على خير العمل
حي على خير الأمل.
الله أكبر الله أكبر
الله أكبر الله أكبر.
لا إله إلا الله
لا إله إلا الله.
لا إله إلا الله
لا إله إلا الله.
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن مولانا عليا ولي الله. أشهد أن مولانا عليا حجة الله. هيا على الصلاة هيا على الصلاة هيا على الفلاح هيا على الفلاح هيا على خير العمل هيا على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا أنزلناه في ليلة القدر وما أدراك ما ليلة القدر. ليلة القدر خير من 1000 شهر.
تنزل الملائكة والروح فيها بإذن ربهم من كل أمر سلام هي حتى مطلع الفجر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته يقوم وأقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا صراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. كذلك الله ربي. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا أفرغ علينا صبرا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وتقبل شفاعته في أمته ورفع درجته. بحول الله وقوته يقوم وأقعد وأركع وأسجد. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد يا خير المسؤولين ويا خير المعطين. وارزقني وارزق إيالي من فضلك فإنك ذو الفضل العظيم. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم الرحمن ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم الرحمن الرحيم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم الرحمن الرحيم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إني أسألك موجبات رحمتك وعزائم مغفرتك والنجاة من النار ومن كل بلية والفوز بالجنة والرضوان في دار السلام وجوار نبيك محمد عليه وآله السلام. اللهم ما بنا من نعمة فمنك لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. اللهم صل على محمد.
صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين عليا ولي الله.
صلوات الله وسلامه عليه. اللهم صل على محمد
أشهد
وآل
أن أمير
محمد.
المؤمنين وأبناءه المعصومين بالحق حجج الله.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
حي على الصلاة، حي على الصلاة، حي على الفلاح، حي على الفلاح، حي على خير العمل، حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة، قد
قامت الصلاة، قد قامت الصلاة.
أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
لا إله إلا الله. يا محسن وقد أتاك المسيح وقد أمرت المحسن أن يتجاوز عن المسيح. أنت المحسن وأنا المسيء بحق محمد وآل محمد. صل على محمد وآل محمد وتجاوز عنك به ما تعلم مني بجميع ما عندك يا كريم. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا صراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفره إنه كان توابا. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمد ربي. صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. سبحان الله. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. كذلك الله ربي. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وأجل فرجهم. ربنا أتمم لنا نورنا واغفر لنا إنك على كل شيء قدير. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وتقبل شفاعته في أمته ورفع درجته. بحول الله وقوته يقوم وأقعد. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. اللهم اغفر لنا. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. إلهي صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد. يا لطيف ارحم أنا عبدك ضعيف. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر.
اللهم صل على
محمد وآل محمد.
استغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم الرحمن الرحيم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. اللهم صل على محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. شجرة النبوة وموضع الرسالة ومختلف الملائكة ومعدن العلم وأهل بيت الوحي. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الفلك الجارية في اللجج الغامرة يأمن من ركبها ويغرق من تركها. المتقدم لهم مارق والمتأخر عنهم زاهق واللاذم لهم لاحق. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الكهف الحصين وغياث المضطر المستكين وملجأ الهاربين وعصمة المعتصمين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد صلاة كثيرة تكون لهم رضا ولحق محمد وآل محمد أداء وقضاء بحول منك وقوة يا رب العالمين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الطيبين الأبرار الأخيار الذين أوجبت حقوقهم وفرضت طاعتهم وولايتهم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد واعمر قلبي بطاعتك ولا تخزني بمعصيتك وارزقني مواساة من قدرت عليه من رزقك بما وسعت علي من فضلك ونشرت علي من عدلك وأحييتني تحت ظلك. وهذا شهر نبيك سيدي رسلك شعبان الذي حففته منك بالرحمة والرضوان الذي كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم يدأب في صيامه وقيامه في لياليه وأيامه بخوعا لك في إكرامه وعظامه إلى محل حمامه. اللهم فعن على الاستنان بسنته فيه ونيل الشفاعة لديه. اللهم واجعله لشفيعا مشفعا وطريقا إليك محيان واجعلني له متبعا حتى ألقاك يوم القيامة عني راضيا وعن ذنوب غاضيا. قد أوجبت لي منك الرحمة والرضوان وأنزلتني دار القرار ومحل الأخيار. الله اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام ولك السلام وإليك يعود السلام. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون سلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام على الأئمة الهادين المهديين. السلام على جميع أنبياء الله ورسله وملائكته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام على علي أمير المؤمنين. السلام على الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة أجمعين. السلام على علي بن الحسين زين العابدين. السلام على محمد بن علي باقر علم النبيين. السلام على جعفر بن محمد الصادق. السلام على موسى بن جعفر الكاظم. السلام على علي بن موسى الرضا. السلام على محمد بن علي الجواد. السلام على علي بن محمد الهادي. السلام على الحسن بن علي الذكي العسكري. السلام على الحجة بن الحسن القائم المنتظر المهدي صلوات الله عليهم أجمعين. اللهم صل على Brothers and sisters, inshallah, we'll be in a few minutes. We'll be going on with the seminar, and then followed by a Q&A session. And inshallah, we'll have the refreshments or will be served, and they'll be in containers. So for the brothers and sisters, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad, you on Muhammad.
Yeah, a couple minutes. Yes. Correct. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, just pay the one time and then after that it's good forever. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, just one time you'd pay and then after that you don't pay again. Yeah. No. Sorry, did it reset? In the Khums division slide. Yeah, there we go. Oh, okay.
Hello. So I had this question asked today by one of the brothers who we met. He couldn't come in. So the question was, Let's say you have 10,000 savings at the end of the year. Today, your Khums year day is coming, but you also owe 20,000 or something, not in mortgage or car payments, but somebody personally.
Okay.
And you have agreed that you're not going to pay him in the next few months. Being in a net liability situation like that, does Khums still apply on that saving, or like how does it work in that kind of situation when you're net liability situation?
Yeah. Normally, yeah, your Khums would still be payable because that's still money with you. Obviously, with a lot of these rulings, there's always exceptions to the rule. So, I mean, there may be an instance like, for example, like this. Well, let's say you have an amount of money that you owe somebody, and maybe for whatever reason you can't get it to them, or they're not available. You can always speak to either the marja directly or somebody who he's given permission to negotiate on his behalf, and they may be able to work out a compromise in those kinds of situations. Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
Just to click this first button so it toggles to the next one.
Okay.
If you press it once. Oh, okay. So it doesn't go in order. I was thinking, okay, so I'll just put it on the side.
Okay.
Yeah, this is fine.
Okay. It's okay. So we'll continue on. So in the previous slide, we just mentioned the calculation. So going forward, as I said, that the Khums is divided into two portions. So you have what's called the portion of the Sadat, and I explained that, which is 50% of the total amount of your Khums. And 50% of it is the portion, what's called the portion of the Imam. I'll explain how that works, basically, because there's a lot of confusion in the minds of some of the people about these two portions and why is there differentiation in the religion about that. So as we mentioned in the verse of the Khums, according to the verse of Surah Anfal, we talk about this Islamic tax was the property of Allah, right? Allah was the first recipient of the Khums. Number two was, as he said, Rasulullah, the messenger of Allah. And then there were four other categories. One was what they called Dhil Qurba, which were the near relatives of the Prophet. One were the orphans who are related to the Prophet. One of the needy related to the Prophet, like a blood relation to the Prophet. And number six are the stranded travelers, again, who are members of the family of the Prophet. Now, I explained that a bit more. But first of all, is the first two shares belong to Allah and the Prophet, right? Obviously, that's pretty clear. The third share is that of the near relative, the Dhil Qurba, which belongs, we believe, to the infallible Imam of the time. In our case, our 12th Imam. So generally speaking, this is where we get the concept of Sahmi Imam and Sahmi Sadat, and how we say that they're 50-50, because the first three categories, obviously Allah is not here to take that money, right? The Prophet isn't here to take that money from us. Our 12th Imam we have, so obviously that money becomes his property. And then obviously in the Ghaiba there's a issue, a dilemma we face, and I'll go into that very briefly. But these three shares basically, as we'll see, they get basically lumped into one category, which we'll call the portion of the Imam. And the other three shares, which are the basically the orphan, the needy, and the traveler, these belong to the Hashemite family, what we call the Sayyid or the Sadat, the terms that we use, who are either A, orphans, B, they're needy, or C, they're traveling and they're stuck on a journey and they don't have any way to get back home without, because of their financial issue. One thing to note is that when we say the Hashemite, we mean that it's not only the Sayyids that trace the lineage from Amir al-Mu'mineen and Lady Zahra, alayhim salam. They receive preference, but when we say Banu Hashim, it's all of the people from the tribe of Banu Hashim. So this could be the children of Hazrat Aqil, the son of Abu Talib as well. It could basically be any of the people from the tribe, from the clan of Banu Hashim. But the family of Lady Zahra and Amir al-Mu'mineen, they take priority and precedence. And maybe, I don't know, but I don't know if we even I don't know if we have people today who even trace their lineage to other tribes of Banu Hashim that we can safely say for sure are from that particular lineage. And so basically those last three categories, that's what makes up what we call the portion of the Sadat, are those three. It's important to keep in mind that it's not just any Sayyid, right? So you can't have a Sayyid that says, oh, I'm a Sayyid, so give me your money. they have to be genuinely needy, right? And needy meaning that they have no ability to work, right? If you have somebody who's, let's say, quadriplegic, who's handicapped, who physically cannot work, that's a different story. But if you just have somebody who's like, I don't want to work, I'm a Sayyid, you owe me your money, give it to me, I'm going to sit around and just collect money, we don't accept that, right? And Maraja are clear that the Sayyid has to be needy, right? They have to be somebody who can't make ends meet, right? It's a temporary thing. There are a lot of specifics on the qualities and characteristics. I won't go into it right now, but it's important to keep in mind that they have to be needy people, right? They're not just, it's not just a carte blanche that somebody calls you up or emails you, hey, I'm a Sayyid from this country, I need your money, send it to me. I want to go for ziyarat, I want to do this, I want to go, you know what? No, it doesn't work like that. It's not just free money for anybody to want to just come and take. So the first two portions, I said, right, Allah obviously doesn't come in person to take his share, but Allah said, فَإِنَّ لِلَّهِ خُمُسَهُ. So if Allah tells us in the Quran that one part of the khums is his money, how does Allah collect? Right? He gave us money, and now Allah says, I want some of that money back, but he's not here to take it, right? And so therefore what we say is that because the second category was wa rasulihi and his prophet, that the prophet takes Allah's portion on Allah's behalf. So when Rasulullah was alive and khums was coming to him, those 7 categories, right? People who were in the spoils of war and fighting and treasures, they would literally give it to the prophet, the money, the 20%, and say, here is the khums money, ya Rasulullah. Allah's portion is in that, your portion is in that, Dhil Qurba, your family's portion is in that. Because the prophet was Allah's representative, therefore he would take Allah's portion and his own portion. So out of the 6 parts, right, out of these 6, the prophet would take the first 2. Then the prophet passes away, right? He dies. Who is there now? Right? We have the imamah, we have the continuation. And that's where we say that after the death of the prophet is the near relative of the messenger. Right? So after the death of the prophet, the share of the Allah and the messenger go to the successor. So at the time of Amir al-Mu'mineen, when he was the imam, he would take the portion of khums of Allah and the prophet, if the khulafa would have given it to him, let's say. At the time of every imam, they would now take the share of Allah and the prophet, because now they're the ones in charge. Also, the third portion, which was Dhil Qurba, the close family members, again, that would be the imam of that particular time. So at the time of Imam Zainul Abidin, he would take the portion of Allah, the prophet, and the Dhil Qurba, and all the way down the line, basically. We get to the point where 12th Imam is born, right? He goes into the minor occultation. The major occultation happens when he's about 60 years old. He's in the major occultation until now. 1,200 years have passed. What happens? Right? There are books written on this from Muslim scholars about what the early community were doing. And for example, some of the people, the early scholars from maybe 600, 800 years ago, maybe before that even, they would literally dig a hole in their backyard and bury the money in there. Obviously, they had gold and silver coins. They didn't have paper currency. But they would bury the money and say that when the 12th Imam comes, he'll dig it out and he'll use that money. But this continued, and how long can you keep burying money, right? It became to a point where it probably wasn't practical. It wasn't logical, you know. So somewhere, and I haven't traced it down, and I didn't want to go into that much of a detail, but somewhere down the line, our scholars basically determined, well, we can't just sit and bury money in the ground, right? If the money is there, and we know that from the hadith that Allah gave the prophet the authority to use that money on certain purposes, and the imam of the time would have used it for certain purposes, let's figure out what they used it for. And in the absence of the 12th imam, let's use that wealth in ways that would be fitting, that Allah would be pleased with, that the prophet would be acceptable of, that the imam of the time would be said, okay, you know what, that's a good reason to use this particular money. And so what we say, again, in a nutshell, I'm not going to go into too much of the details, is that during the occultation of our imam, this gets basically used, and the way the scholars put the wording in, they say that the portion of the imam should be used for anything which would be something that the 12th Imam would be happy with. Right? And so, I mean, one of the things is that we have to, we can use that money, but with the permission of the mujtahid, of the marja that we follow. But for example, we see that it's used to help the poor and needy Shia around the world, right? Orphanages, poor people in general can benefit from the portion of the Imam. Education and propagation of Islam is taken through Khums money, right? For example, you'll see books that are published within the Muslim world, even in English. A lot of tabligh work, educational work, propagational work within our communities. Khums is used for that, because this is something that the scholars feel, the Maraja feel that the 12th Imam would be happy with, to teach this religion, to educate others about it. It's also used to support religious scholars and students who are studying in the seminary in Iran, in Najaf, in different parts of the world, even in North America where we have seminaries. For them to be able to focus solely on studies and not have to worry about anything else. And obviously the building of our centers, right? For example, we have the Jaffrey Center in Toronto. Over $20 million was spent. Apparently half of that, if not more, was through Khums money, right? So many of our masajid, our centers, Islamic buildings that we have in North America, in Europe, and around the world are built through this money. So, one of the things that we should keep in mind is that much of that portion of the Imam never actually reaches the mujtahid, right? It's not like Sayyid Sistani or any other marja is getting the money directly in their hands. A lot of it is being used with their permission around the world, whether it's here locally in other provinces, other cities. It's, excuse me. It's being used basically through their blessings, through their permission, by us in the West, basically, even till today. Just to give you one very practical example. So the Hawza Ilmiya of Qum, where many scholars have graduated from, back in the early 80s, there were about 15,000 students and teachers in the Hawza of Qum, around the time of after the revolution in Iran. At that time, the average student would receive $30 a month as an allowance for food, for rent, the basic life necessities. Do the math, that was about $450,000 a month was given to students. Fast forward to today, there's over 40,000 students in Qum, including teachers, including researchers. Today they get an average of 150, depending on how far you are in your studies. If you're in the senior studies, becoming a mujtahid, you might get double or triple that amount, depending on what level of studies you're at. But if I average 150, which is what an average student gets today, that's $6 million just in Qum in 1 month. Then there's Najaf, then there's Karbala, then there's probably Kadhimain, there's, in Iran, there's Isfahan, there's Mashhad, right? Imagine all of those students are collecting a monthly allowance to allow them to continue to study. So they don't have to worry about rent, about food, about how will they pay their bills, right? So these students who are studying, they become scholars, and ultimately they come back to our communities, most of them, or a good number of them, here or back in our own home countries or wherever the case may be. So this is a prime example of where money is going, right? Obviously they probably have investments and things that are also being done in the Hawza to supplement this, because 6 million is a lot of money if you think about it, right? And that's a very modest estimate. It might be up to 10 million maybe a month, right? That's huge if you think about it. $10 million a month is a large amount of money. So our Khums money goes to these kinds of things, right? It's not that somebody's just getting rich off of it, right? No, there's thousands of students who are benefiting from this on a regular basis. And we understand that during the ghaiba of our 12th Imam, our ulama, especially the Maraja Taqleed at the pinnacle, right? Because our ulama are unique, we don't get paid by governments. Right? You go to Egypt today, Al-Azhar, right? The Mufti is appointed by the government, for example. He's on the government payroll. You go to Makkah, you go to Medina. The Imam of Masjid al-Haram, his khutbah, it comes from somebody else, right? He's being paid by the government. It's a government position. So when you're paid by a government, you're basically told what to say by that government. So if our Maraja were being paid, let's say at the time of Saddam, Mal'un, by him, guess what? You would have fatwa praising Saddam, right? Even today, even though he's no longer there, but were the ulama of Najaf or Karbala to be paid by the government of Iraq, they would still have to compromise and put a rubber stamp on government policy, right? Whether that be in Iran or Iraq or Lebanon or Syria, wherever it may be. And so the point being is that when we have Khums and our Maraja take control of it, and yes, they probably spend on their own lives, although I've read stories, for example, of the late Ayatollah Bahjat, where he himself wouldn't even take Khums money for himself. They say that he used to actually do qadha prayers and fasting, and he would support his family through that act, right? So when you have scholars who are independent of the government that they live under, when they're not obliged because they're being paid by them, then our Maraja can stand up and criticize the government, whether it's in this country or that country or wherever, because they're not on the payroll, right? When you're working for a company, you can't talk bad about them, right? When you work for the government, you can't say, oh, I disagree with their policies, because your paycheck will stop tomorrow, right? So that's one of the benefits, is that they don't have that influence when we give this money to the Maraja, right? Don't think that they're living lavish lives. And if you've ever been to Najaf to see, for example, Sayyid Sistani or the other Maraja, you'll see how simple they live. You go to Qum, for example, you see the Maraja in Qum. They're not driving, luxurious cars. And even if they are, I would tell you this, because, some people used to accuse other Maraja and Najaf of having a bulletproof Mercedes, for example. But they don't realize that that was donated to them by a very rich donor, right? Because many times when we go to Najaf, let's say to meet our Maraja or go to Qum, we'll take gifts for them. We'll take them an abba, we'll take them a personal gift for them as an individual, not as the Maraja. So many times our Maraja may have a big home, but A, it's either being rented, or B, it's a gift from somebody. They might dress nicely, although they might not want to, but it may be a gift from somebody. Right? They may have a car that they're coming back and forth in, but guess what? The car could be gifted by a community member who just wants to give them a gift. So we should never presume that because the Maraja is maybe living what we think to be a lavish life, that they're pocketing the money. Right? We give them the benefit of the doubt that they may have people around them who are buying them these gifts and want them to, be as comfortable as possible. The second portion, which is called the Sadat portion, as we said, it belongs to those who are specifically from the family of the Prophet. They have to be orphans, for example. They have to be needy. They have to be stranded. There have to be some reason why they don't have means to support themselves. There's a lot of discussion and a lot of specifics about this area. I don't want to go into all of them. But for example, just so we know that most of the Maraja allow us as the Muqallideen to give the Sayyids our own Khums money if we know that they're needy. So you don't have to go to your Maraja and say that here's the Sadat portion, can I give it to this person? If you know somebody who is from the family of the Prophet, and you have to know for sure, right? Because it's for some communities, unfortunately, it's a business. It's been made into a business where people will claim to be from that because they know they can get money from people. So we have to ensure that they are legitimately from within that lineage. And if they're needy, they fit the criteria. One of them, for example, being that they can't be open sinners. If they fit the need and they have that requirement, we're allowed to give it to them. We can give them even if they live here locally. It's not a problem. It doesn't, for most of the Maraja, check with your Maraja if you follow somebody else. They allow us to distribute that on our own. And there's no need for any informing even of the Maraja on that. You can just be giving it to them directly and helping them out in that particular way. So let me wrap up in two last slides. Is who do you give your Khums to ultimately? One is obviously your Maraja Taqleed directly. If you go to visit him, and you want to take your money with you, although you'll find many times that they may tell you, don't bring it here, right? They will say that keep it back in your home country. Although some people want to take it to them, you can if your Maraja is comfortable with that. And obviously respecting the laws of the country of taking money out of the country is also an issue. But you can do that. Number two is if your local scholar holds permission to be able to utilize Khums. And they should have written permission for that. It doesn't have to be written. They may have a verbal agreement, but they may be able to, so you may still trust them for that. They'll say they will get that to the Maraja, and they'll provide you with the receipt back from the Maharaja's office. So at least you know for sure that your money has gone to the office. So even if they say, I don't have the written permission, but I am, let's say, going for a ziyarat and I'll take your money for you, or they have a written agreement, a verbal agreement with the Maharaja, and you trust them and they'll provide you with the receipt back, then you can also do that. Or also, local, national, international organizations that we have in Canada, especially, many of them hold permission and they'll have it, let's say, on their website, or if you ask them, they should be able to provide you that documentation in the original language and hopefully a translation that shows that they have written permission to utilize the khums and how much, because the Maharaja will be very specific. He'll say that this person from this institute is allowed to use 25%, 50%, 100%, whatever the amount is. He'll spell it out clearly in his permission, right? So ask to see that paper. If somebody approaches you and says, hey, I have permission to collect khums, ask them for that permission, and they shouldn't be offended, right? Because the Maharaja are clear that if you give it to somebody and they're not authorized, then you have to pay it again, right? So you have to make sure that that person is an authorized individual that the Maharaja recognizes as being somebody who has been given that permission to collect on his behalf. And before we end, as we say that, the more you give, the more you receive, right? We shouldn't think of it, 20% of my wealth is gone, right? We should realize that there's still 80% in the bank, first of all. And even that 20% we gave, right? Like I said, that this will come back to our community, right? When we need to build our centers, guess what? That money is used for that. When it comes to publishing Islamic literature, right? That money is used for that. Or online blogs, or online videos for Islamic education. That money that we're giving, that 20%, is helping the needy of our community at one level, the Sadat, but it's also helping us establish our own communities, right? So we have our own centers, beautiful, large centers where we can have our programs, where you have the room and the space to grow, have youth programs, all of these things. So we should never look at khums as being a burden on us, but rather that it's a benefit to keep our community self-sufficient, right? And help our own selves, rather than relying on others from outside to come and help us, right? When we have a community and we can give this money, it'll come back and help us and support us. And ultimately, as even there's another verse in the Quran where Allah tells the Prophet, it's about sadaqah, but this is a form of sadaqah, this is a form of charity, where Allah tells the Prophet that take from the wealth of the people some sadaqah. This will purify them, it'll purify their money. And Allah tells the Prophet that when you take this money, then make dua for the people. Pray for the individual who's giving this money, because indeed your du'as act as a way of them to receive sukoon, tranquility. So when we give this khums money, right, we're fulfilling the right of Allah, the Prophet, the family of the Prophet. We're getting the du'as of the 12th Imam, we're getting the du'as of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. We're remembering the fact that Sayyidah Zahra alayhi salam, that fadak was stolen from her haq was taken from her, that was her right. And so when we give our khums, we're showing that we're not taking away the rights of the Ahlul Bayt, right? That this is something which is enshrined in the Quran. Allah has said that this is their right to have. And it's not like they're going to get rich off of it, right? You look at the life of the Prophet, he still led a simple life, right? Look at the life of Amir al-Mu'mineen, he was led a very simple life. Look at the life of our Maraja Taqleed today, right? They lead extremely simple lives. And so that money again goes back and helps us, and it makes us better as a community. I'll conclude just a couple of references. I'll get this PowerPoint also sent out through the Jamaat email, so you have access to the links. There's a few different seminars which I had referenced by Maulana Sayyid Muhammad Rizvi on that he had delivered in Toronto, which is a pretty decent seminar. There's a book that Maulana Rizvi has written called Khums and Islamic Tax, which is available online to download. And Ayatollah Nasir Makarim Shirazi actually has a book written on this topic as well. And this is, again, we'll send the link out because it's available in 3 parts, a really decent English translation, originally written in Farsi, about khums from the history of the time of the Prophet, the time of the Imams, the Shia, the Sunni approach. He answers a lot of questions about about the khums, about, is it favoritism for the Sadat to get the khums and non-Sadat not to get the khums? He brings up a lot of interesting issues, and he poses a lot of good responses to them. And again, a few other links which we'll send out. Response to accusations against the khums. Again, Maulana Rizvi had done a lecture on Ahlul Bayt TV about khums, a seminar in Dar es Salaam, and Sheikh Murtaza Bachu from Vancouver had also done a similar seminar on the khums out in Vancouver. And ultimately, if you have any questions, you can email me. We can talk, or you can email me directly, and we can hopefully give you guidance on any other issues that we didn't talk about here, or that your own specific issues about the khums. So we have a bit of time right now. If you want to even grab some food and eat while we're talking, we can do that. But I think the ladies have a mic, and we have the brothers over here. If there's any questions about what we've talked about, or maybe that I didn't cover, we can discuss that now for a little bit.
Assalamu alaikum. I have one question about the RSP for the allowance of the kids. If we put some money in a side, like for example, $1,000 a year, and the government will give 20% contribute on that one. The 20% will be khumsable as well, or just the $100 a month we put at the side for our kids?
Yeah, just the amount that you contribute will be khumsable. The amount that the government gives there won't be any khums on that, unless when your child goes to school, if they haven't used the entire amount,
Okay.
then there would be. But because the government puts it in at the end, I guess, so yeah, there will be no khums on that in the initial stage.
Okay. One more question.
Sure.
If the husband and wife, you said the wife, if it's working, the lady is working, and they have the responsible for their own homes.
Yes.
If there is no separate account for the wife, and they put everything together, it's a joint account and expense of the house and all for the kids and everything, and the husband is not following the homes, and the wife is, what is the responsibility for the wife? What should she do in this case?
In that situation, the wife should try to calculate how much of that money in that joint account would be sort of her income. Obviously, I've taken care of all the expenses. She should try to determine how much would be her part of that account, and pay that khums accordingly on that amount.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
About RSPs, let's say I put like 50,000, for example,
Okay.
and I haven't paid khums on.
Okay.
This was like I started, for example, like 5 years ago or 10 years ago.
Okay.
And now there's a interest on, like there's a, what do you call it?
The gains on it.
Gains on it too.
Yes. Yeah.
How would we like justify like how much
Okay.
khums should we pay? Like
Sure.
how much khums should I pay for that?
Yep. So in that kind of a situation where if you had put away savings and you didn't pay khums on it, and now you want to pay, you just really need to go back and pay on the initial principal amount that you put in. So you wouldn't worry about the interest. So if you knew that you put in $50,000, for example, then you just pay on that particular amount.
What if I don't know how much did I put initially?
If you don't know and you can't get, like, for example, let's say bank statements or whatever, then just, I guess, really the best you can do is try to do your best guess and try to guess how much you might have put in based on, maybe how much your statement shows today. Try to guess that amount and basically pay on that, and just ask Allah, right, that if it's short, then Allah basically forgives. That you were doing our best to sort of cover whatever we may have missed in the past.
And where do I get that 20% from? because they cannot touch
Where do
that.
you get that money from? That's the challenge, right?
Like they cannot touch that
Yeah.
RSP. Like
So you can't touch the RSP. So in this kind of a case, obviously Islam isn't going to be that strict and that harsh on us. So the best thing to do if we ever have any times where we can't pay the amount because it's too big or we
Yeah.
don't have the access to that kind of money, is to find out who of the marja that you follow, that has the permission from the marja to negotiate such things on behalf of the marja. Because you'll have sometimes some local scholars who may have permission to collect khums, but they won't have permission to negotiate on the behalf of the marja. Right? So you'd have to find who that person is who can negotiate and discuss that. They may put you in a plan where you can pay every month a certain amount of money until you can pay that amount off. Obviously, they realize that certain amounts might be too large; it can't be paid immediately. So they'll work with you to develop a plan to how to ease it on you to make it easier on the person to pay that off in a time frame.
Okay.
Yeah.
That and another thing is for the house we own, the house
Okay.
we live in.
Yes.
Let's say we have it's $800,000 house.
Okay.
And there is $200,000 mortgage left or $300,000 mortgage left on it.
Okay.
So how do we have to pay on that $500,000 we have paid towards down payment on the house?
You mean so a house was purchased and that down payment didn't have khums taken on it initially?
Correct. Yeah.
Same question. Is there khums on the house that you buy?
So there's no khums on a house you buy, no, because it's a valid expense as long as it's within your means. So that might become a bit challenging. I'd have to look into it.
Yeah.
Because if a person, so I would have to see if the fatwa of Sayyid Sistani is retroactive, if it went back.
That's what we follow, like Lasistani.
Yeah. Let me find out, and I'll what I'll probably do is I'll have the Jamaat email out the response so that
Okay.
everybody gets the
Yeah, okay.
response. I'll just
Okay.
make a note of it though
Okay.
on my computer.
Thanks. Doesn't matter. You're the first buyer. Obviously you'll be the first buyer because you live in there, right? So
So if it's first buyer, the down payment is not liable for khums, right?
Exactly, yeah. But that's for the current ruling of Sayyid Sistani. I don't know how far back it could be applied retroactively, like from, let's say, 20 years ago, or if somebody bought a house 15 years ago and his fatwa only came out 5 years back. So,
So my understanding that we're getting
yes,
Is that if you're living in a house, which is your principal residence,
yes,
there is no khums on that.
correct.
But if you have investment properties or rental properties, they would count as savings or they would not count as savings? Would you have, let's say you save and you buy a rental property or you buy a condo which
Yeah.
is on rent and you're collecting rent, would that count towards, do you have to pay khums on that property? Or
Well,
not?
I mean, you'd be paying homes on the savings, right? Just like you have any business, right? Somebody, and again, that's why the business home is a bit more trickier. But, somebody has a store, they sell computers, right? So you're buying and selling computers, that's as an example, right? So you're obviously having inventory and stock in place. You're buying excess of video cards and monitors and, whatever. So there's obviously, there is going to be an aspect of homes on that, right? But with businesses, it does become a bit more trickier. And I would say that housing, like if you're in the real estate business, it's a kind of business, right? Just like you're buying and selling cell phones or you're selling whatever, right? Or you have a grocery store, right? So you're buying, you have like a little corner market, right? So you're selling all the basic chips and pop and that. So there is still an aspect of homes even in businesses. So we'll probably have to have, I think, a separate session in terms of business aspect. Yeah. Yeah.
I think, I don't know. You said you will look in it.
Yeah.
Yes, but so far it's only the down payment. It's not.
Yeah, so the house
khums
itself never, like a house wouldn't have khums on it, right? Because a physical house that you buy, you're living in it, it's being used, right?
Yes.
So the only question really is the down payment. As of when this fatwa of Sayyid Sistani came out where he allows the down payment to be khums free, But the question is, let's say the fatwa came out 5 years ago. If a person bought the house, let's say 15 years ago, and he didn't pay khums on the down payment because they didn't, understand, they didn't know about khums or whatever the case may be, and now they want to go back and fix that, what they did, is would they now go back and say, okay, I bought a house, let's say 15 years ago, I put $500,000 down payment on, I didn't pay khums on that money, do I now have to pay khums on that down payment, right? So that's the question. I'm going to just find out the answer for that now, if a person would have to pay that khums on that now. Because, I mean, that would obviously change a lot of the dynamics of it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, as an individual residence that you buy a house, there's no khums on that, on your personal house.
So-
But if you're buying homes as an investment property, right? Even there, right, it becomes a bit of a, it does become a bit of a, it's not clear, not clear, but it's not like a yes and no black and white answer, because you might be buying a house in January, renovating it, flipping it, selling it in February, right? And you're way before your homes date, right? So you're going to be within that time frame, right? Or if you have your own business, right? You have a grocery store, you're buying stuff, you're selling it. There's always turnaround, right? In product, right? But let's say you're buying and selling homes, right? You're renovating them and selling them on the market. What if you buy it in July and you buy it at the beginning of the month, you're renovating it, you sell it in August, but in that time frame, your homes date comes up, right? So all of these scenarios become a bit more unique because now you're in the middle of those kind of processes.
Yeah. So if someone doesn't have a house and is planning to buy a house,
Okay.
and he works, he
Okay.
or she works, and saves some money, but his plan or her plan is to buy a house.
Yes.
So what about the money? Like, for example, the plan is after 5 years or 6 years to buy
Yeah.
the house. Is the money like the one has been saved during these years?
Yeah. So right,
Khums
as of
alone?
now, like Ayatollah Sistani's fatwa is that if it's your first time buying a home, and he makes the condition where if the society that you live in, if they would say that by you not having a home, that it's sort of, it's like, yeah, it's like you're being negligent of your duties to your family, let's say, right? If the community and the society feels that,
Yes.
then you would be able to save for the down payment and not pay khums on that. Yes.
Yeah. So another question.
Yes.
If you mentioned in the beginning, for example, if someone buys 2 shirts and use one, the other one is still in the bag, the box. But and after 1 year, but the money he used to buy these is already the home is paid for them. You know what I mean? It's from the last year,
Yes.
and the shirt is not used for 1 year. Should he or she pay homes again, or that's it?
Yeah, it's not really khums again because now you've used that money for something, right? Like you've used that money to buy that shirt, for example.
But the money is already from the 80%.
Yes.
From the Muhammad's money.
Okay. Okay.
For example, to give a similar example, if someone had the money,
Yeah.
he received 100,000.
Mhm.
He took off the 20%, and now he has 80,000,
Yes.
and he has invested in a property, for instance.
Mhm.
So this property is bought off Muhammad's.
Yes.
So it's not that now he has to pay once he sells that property, or is that just
If you buy something from after Khums money but not use it within a year, that's the right?
Yes.
Buy something with khums money. I'll confirm with that as well. Yeah.
Barakallah fiik.
Yeah,
Barakallah.
make a note of
Jazakallah.
it as well.
Jazakallah khair. Huh? Oh yeah, I have 10.
You should do a lot of accounting.
Yes. Jazakallah. Barakallah.
I think something fell off from. It's right.
One more question, brother.
Sure.
For example, if you're said in your family in needy and you want to give your homes to your family, and they're not spending the money in the right way. If we just spend the money, the homes money in our hand, like by place for them or rent a place for and give the entire 1 year rent of their house for a year, that's permissible? Because if we give it to them, they're not spending on themselves, or maybe they keep the money, or they are needy, but they don't want it in the right way. Is it permissible? You can just pay 1 year rent of their house, or is it possible? Is it permissible?
Yeah, so not give them the cash, but help them out in another way. For example, like paying the rent or buying what they need with that money, yeah? You mean?
Yeah.
I will check that one and get back as well to you on that question.
Okay.
Yeah.
And one more question. If someone has a extra property and sold it to non-Muslim, and the money comes, that money is khumsable, or it's come as extra income and saving, or no?
Yeah, that would be khumsable. If it's not used within the year, by the time your khums date comes along.
Okay,
Yes.
thanks.
Just another question, Sheikh. So for instance, if someone buys a property, and I understand the condition, for example, he buys a property as a home and he lives in it, so he doesn't have to pay khums on it, right?
Correct.
But if he buys a property, for example, it's a summer home, he just spends a few months over there, or even a night or day, does that exempt him from that property from khums?
Yes, it would. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
One more, so another question, Sheikhuna. Within our cultural traditions, especially when sons or daughters get married, mothers or fathers, they will gift, let's say, some family jewelry or some family gift which has been given down, which was supposed to be part of your inheritance, but they've given you in their life.
Okay.
Now, my understanding when I saw that direct inheritance is not khumsable. We've invented a new word now. It's not khumsable. So in that case, when it comes as a gift to you, like let's say family jewelry or something, how do you account for that when it was going to come eventually, but in their life the parents have given those, let's say, qaleen or anything to you as a gift?
Yeah. So you can look at it two ways. According to Ayatul Sistani, gifts have khums on them. So, I mean, if it's something that you can use right away, like jewelry or a rug or something, and it can be used, then obviously it's best to use it, before that 1 year is up. Obviously, if it's cash, that's a different issue, right? I mean, if it stays for more than 1 year, then you'll have to pay the khums on that. So generally speaking, if you get something as a gift from your parents for a wedding or whatever the case may be, the best thing is that if you're able to use it within that 1 year period, then just to use it up. I should make a note here, though, because I keep saying the 1 year period. I don't mean, and there's a difference of opinion amongst the scholars again, but I don't necessarily mean 365 days, right? So look, for example, my khums date, let's say, is August the 1st. If I get paid on July the 30th, if my khums date is the next day, technically my 1 year is now up because I got paid July 30th. My khums date is August the 1st. So technically speaking, according to, and I remember reading this in Ayatul Sistani's Risala because it was asked from some brothers on a WhatsApp group, and Sayyid Sistani, and I even wrote to his office in Najaf to clarify, and he basically said that, yeah, if your khums date is a certain date, if you got paid the day before, and you haven't used that money up by the day your khums day comes, your khums is liable on that money. So it's not necessarily 365 days that go by, right? You might get paid, or you might get, let's say, something in January. Your khums date is September, so now you have from January to September to use it. But your khums date might be September, you got something in August, now you only have 30 days to use that amount. So there are certain exceptions to the rule that Ayatul Sistani has. Certain professions where they may get paid on a different kind of a work schedule, and they may be able to set multiple khums dates, right? Or you may have people who don't have a regular steady source of income, so they can't always say, okay, I'm going to get paid every second week, every month. So at least in the, I don't know if it's in the New English version of his Risala, but it's in the New Persian version. Even in the Arabic, I don't know if it's there yet. But he does talk about the fact that, it's not 365 days of the khums. It could be a day before. Right? You might get paid on Monday, Tuesday's your khums date. And if you have the money, then technically you would have to pay. Again, the religion isn't so strict, because obviously if you have mortgage and bills to pay and you can't get to the bank, obviously that could be an issue. So I mean, it's good to again talk to a scholar who has that permission from the Maraja to negotiate and discuss such issues. Because obviously if you get paid and your mortgage is until the end of the month or the middle of the month and you've got the money but you have to pay Khums, and it means you're going to miss a mortgage payment, well, that's going to be obviously issue, right? But that's presuming that there's no other savings in the bank, right? But yeah, so keep in mind that when I talk about this Khums year, it doesn't necessarily mean 365 days would transpire. And other Maraja, for example, they have rulings which they say you can keep multiple days of Khums. Let's say you have a business, and the kind of business that you're in, you pay yourself, but you pay yourself sporadically, maybe every few months, every 3 months, or every 4 months, a large sum. And so let's say you take a payment in March, one in June, one in September. They say that you could set multiple dates for those amounts. So you'd have to keep track. Okay, March I got 10,000, let's say. Now I need to keep track of 1 year from that March for that amount of 10,000. June I got another 10,000 or 20,000. I have to keep track of when I'm going to spend that, right? So some scholars allow that, but obviously you have to be very meticulous and careful in how you do your calculations and how you keep track of your money. For some people, that's almost impossible to do, right? To keep multiple bank books and statements and accounts, and when you've got what money and how much you spent out of each envelope or bank account. So it's one date, and that's basically whatever's on that date is fixed. And 1 year you might end up paying more, but another year you might end up paying less, right? So it balances out at the end of the day. And this was a question I actually asked last time when I was in Edmonton, is that if you overpay 1 year, you can claim it back the next year. So if you accidentally paid, let's say 10,000 this year, and you realize when you did your calculations, oh, I overpaid, I should have only paid 5. So you can offset that 5,000 in the upcoming years. In the subsequent years, you can say, well, I overpaid in 2018,